Hey, hey, hey. It's the
Hey,
Hoops Talk.
hey.
Hey, hey,
What up?
hey. Girls, women, ladies, what a week.
Nice. What a
Yeah,
week.
What a week. What a week. You know, I am surprised every day. Maybe that's the joy of living.
I don't know.
2020 is just like hold my beer for everything.
Everything. Like another earthquake, LA?
Two, and it was two. We had one woke us up, and then another one when we were like already kind of moving about, but not needed. Just saying,
Not
not
needed.
needed. And then the hurricane that's coming into Florida. I mean,
Is
I
it?
think it.
Didn't they? No. There's a Karen fire in SoCal.
There is 100% a Karen fire in SoCal.
It was funny
Been
though.
raging.
Yeah, but I guess because it happens, it started on Karen Lane, so that's the only serendipitous
God.
reason for calling it that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
so 2020.
Yeah, at least 2020 has a sense of humor.
It's like the year of the Karen,
Good, the bad,
Own
and
it.
the ugly.
Own
It's
it.
all good. It's all good. Everybody, welcome to the Hoops Talk. Karen, how is it going in San Francisco? Anything going up there?
Yeah, this weekend I'm moving.
What?
Yeah, I'm just moving to a bigger apartment, same complex.
Nice.
But I was like, we might be
Okay.
in this for another fucking year. I need
Smart.
some breathing room. I need a patio.
I like that.
I need some more plants, Liz.
Right.
So
I got
need the space for
plans.
it.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That's smart. You could maybe take the studio out of the bedroom.
Yeah, no, it will be. I'm already thinking through the setup.
Love it. Wow. Whoa. Upgrade.
Let me upgrade. Oh, and also I'm binging two things this weekend.
Oh, what are you binging?
Umbrella Academy season 2.
Yes, I need to get on that.
Black is King. Beyonce.
I need to watch that film. That's right. Normally I'm right on top of any Bay thing, but this time around I slept on it. I need to get on there. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was. You know what happened?
Life.
Fucking sports. No,
yeah, that too. Sports.
No, sports. Sports happened. So sports happened, and I stopped watching news. I stopped all the reading and all of the learning. I'm just like, I must have ball in the basket. So yeah. So with both WNBA and NBA going off, I'm sweating, just like ingesting sports. That's what I'm binging.
The Bayhive's like,
I know. I can't do it all. I need to be multiplicity or something. Kendall, how's Utah? How's it going there?
Same old.
Yeah.
Just hot and hanging out with the fam. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I know you're low key working on some super cool projects, so we're gonna be excited to
kind of, sorta, a little bit.
I know. Guys,
you're so humble. Get out of here.
You know what? Seriously, but that's okay. I know it's under wraps right now, but let's just say our tech group text messages are always blowing up with Kendall's goodness on there. And so I'm super excited for what's to come. And
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed it's going to happen. Manifest it. Put it out there. It will happen. And I will say that August, we have some great guests lined up, including the guest that we're having on today, which is going to jump in shortly. But some really good guests. I'm super excited for August. Normally we think hey, maybe we should take a season break, but I'm like, fuck, people are available. They want to come on the Hoops Talk. Let's do it.
There's no schedule this year.
Yeah, I know. No, you're right. I know. I try to understand the seating of the NBA, and I'm like, wait, are they going East Coast? What? I don't know what's happening.
It doesn't even matter. There's no home court advantage, right?
Cool, neat.
Yeah, I know. I'm just going game by game, folks. Game by game.
It's totally like a tourney. You just go and you're like, all right.
Yeah,
just watch this shit. Yeah,
it's like professional AAU.
You're right. You're right. Well, like I said, like I mentioned, we have a really amazing guest on today. This is someone who I reached out to because of some other sports happenings that came about, and I wanted to kind of dig a little deeper. So we're going to have her on next. But before we do that, we always want to do our house cleaning and our updates. So, one, please subscribe, like, and review on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify. We're on Google Play. We're on Pandora. We're on iHeartRadio. We're all over the place. We are an RSS feed. And then we're also on the Good News Radio app, which you can download and get the premiere of our show that comes out Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. West Coast time. We also have our YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to and comment and like and all that good stuff and see our wonderful backgrounds and a little bit into our homes and our guests. You can see our lovely guests when they come on. Currently, we are on Twitter, Instagram at the Hoops Talking, and TikTok. Who knows what's going to happen with that, but
We're still there.
we're still there until the lights go off. We are still there at the Hoops Talk podcast. Other than that, I don't think we have any updates thus far. Just some good guests coming on. So we're going to go ahead and bring on our guest for today, and we'll be right back. And we are back. Welcome, Rachel, to the Hoops Talk.
Hi.
So Rachel Johnston, a.k.a. what is it? Rachel Rotten?
Yeah.
Yes, a.k.a. is the VP of Rebellious PR and member of Angel City Roller Derby League in Los Angeles. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So just a little background on how this kind of came together is that a soccer team started here in Los Angeles they're called Angel City. Currently, that's what they're called. And I was on Twitter and I saw another Angel City league popping up saying like, hey, let's collaborate. We've been here for a while. So I was like, what is this? So I did a little digging and I came upon Angel City Roller Derby, and I came upon Rachel's profile on Twitter as, someone who founded Angel City and was vocal about talking about it. And I was like, gosh, I would love to talk to her and learn more about roller derby in Los Angeles and where roller derby is now. And, maybe talk about like this whole idea of this new, the soccer league coming and how that works with, having the same name and the grassroots organization and those kind of dynamics that are there for a women's leagues in LA. And I admitted on our intake call that really my familiarity with roller derby was when I was a kid and I would see it in movies, and it was more of a gorgeous lady of wrestling style of roller derby. It was definitely like a circuit track. And most movies that I recall were like Rollerball, where there's like some violent fighting, which is a cult classic.
Yes,
With James Caan. Yes. I will admit it is a cult classic. There was also the Raquel Welch movie, Kansas City Bomber. And then more recently, I had seen Whip It with Ellen Page. And then I even noticed that they were using roller derby as part of the storylines in Alita, Battle Angel, and the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey movie. So that was my most deep knowledge of that roller derby. So after I spoke with Rachel, I was like, a whole new world reopened, and things that I didn't think I could think of were imagined after our conversation. So Rachel, with that, I know it's a lot, but I would love for you to start with maybe, tell us about your love of roller derby. I know you were talking about the women in Austin that founded this modern roller derby. So, we're probably a lot of people may not know about roller derby that are listening. So I would love for you just let's roll it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And your experience with roller derby, first of all, is most people's experience with roller derby, by and large. So, and I think that only now are people starting to recognize flat track roller derby for the large sport that it has become. So the genesis of roller derby, the very, very short version is, it was a sport that was invented in the 1930s. It was originally meant to just be a race of teams to skate the distance of the contiguous United States. So they did the number of laps that equaled that distance. And over time, it evolved into being more contact because people love to be entertained by people sabotaging each other, I imagine. And so that is where the sport became, sort of the like more staged, like Rock'em Sock'em style team sport. And that is absolutely the birth of roller derby. People really loved this action that it offered from the very beginning. Those teams were mixed gender, which was pretty unique and very cool. And skaters had like cool nicknames. There were skaters like Skinny Minnie, and they all sort of took on these larger than life personas that I think the only other place that we've really seen that sort of happen like that is, I would say, in like wrestling.
Yeah.
So eventually roller derby sort of petered out in the 1970s. There were a few attempts to bring it back in the 80s and 90s as these very theatrical shows, whether it was, like Roller Jam comes to mind. It was a show in the 90s on TV.
I recall that, yeah.
Yeah. But it never really stuck. So there was, the genesis of modern roller derby is around 2001 in Austin, Texas. A group of girls decided that they wanted to bring back the sport in a more modern form, in a revival. And if we remember, if we think back to what 2001 was like, the internet was not what it is today. The way that we interacted on the internet, the way that micro communities were set up on the internet, like a lot of people spent time on message boards, and social media hadn't really taken off yet. Like this is even before, like, I think maybe things like Friendster were in their like earliest phase, but like MySpace didn't exist yet. Like this was very early on, or MySpace was popping up right around this time. And so these women decided, like, we're going to put together teams and we're going to play roller derby. We're going to adopt these cool nicknames. We're going to watch old videos and try to adapt the rules, try to figure out like how to play it. And then, we'll just start putting on games, and with the goal of raising money to purchase a bank track, because that was the one thing that nobody had at the time, was that velodrome track.
Okay.
Any track that still existed was sitting in storage somewhere. And so these girls were like, well, we're going to have to, raise the money and also figure out where to put this behemoth of a track.
Right.
And what happened out of that was there was a very natural split in ideologies. There was, from that original group of girls in Texas, there were the girls that were really dead set on reestablishing bank track as the sport. And then there was the girls that really saw the value in translating the sport to a flat surface, because it made it so much more accessible to people around the country at the time. So, there was this info sharing that happened like on message boards and on MySpace and over email, and other girls in, Los Angeles and New York and Seattle started to pick up on what the girls in Austin were doing. And they were like, hey, like, give me the dimensions of this track that you laid down on the ground. Tell me what the rules are that you wrote this, that you wrote for this, hey, do you guys want to meet in the middle somewhere and play a game? And so like, it was very much born out of this grassroots DIY hobby that, that a bunch of women were like, this seems fun. Let's have a reason to like bring together everybody to do this activity, and let's make the rules for it. And not just like the rules tactically of how to play it, but the rules of how the sport itself would be governed. And I think that really set the tone for how modern roller derby has evolved. What ended up happening is flat track took off like wildfire because it was so much more accessible. You could literally put a track down in a parking lot, on a hockey rink, an outdoor hockey rink. You could put it down in a skating rink. You could put it down in a warehouse. You could do it anywhere, in a basketball gym. Anywhere that had a flat skatable surface, you could find a way to play the game. And that was so unique and really afforded the opportunity for growth. So the early days were very DIY, very scrappy. Los Angeles had a similar situation where there was a goal of starting a bank track league. And then there was a split off into the group of girls that were like, we're actually cool with flat track. We like this. And then there were still the girls that wanted bank track. So we actually have two coexisting leagues in LA, and we all know each other. We've, the Derby community is pretty close, but so the LA Derby Dolls is the bank track league. And then Angel City became the first flat track league in Southern California. And so I actually wasn't a founder in 2006, but I joined in early 2010 and was sort of part of a meteoric growth for the league. And a lot of that growth happened because of movies like Whip It, raising awareness to this cool, very underground DIY rock and roll sport that people were playing. And it was like, it just kind of hit at the right time where people were just like, wow, like, I wonder if there's somebody doing that where I am. Right. And so it, while it always had some of the elements of kitsch that the previous iterations of the sport had, like nicknames, like pseudonyms, there was a distinct movement in flat track, especially to legitimize the gameplay, but to keep the fun elements. So people really like, that's the thing that I find so special about roller derby, is that like now it's not staged. If you're watching flat track, it's not staged. Everybody trains incredibly hard. They train like professional athletes, especially at the highest level of the sport. There are of course recreational programs as well, as there are with any sport. There's all levels available. Right. But I love the element of fun that has been maintained, and the names are one way that is incredibly apparent. For some people, they wear face paint when they skate. Some people wear, flashy accessories. Some people, like a lot of us have like very cool custom skates. So there's different ways that the personality of roller derby has like really been able to shine, in addition to the growth of the sport athletically.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was so interesting as well that you had mentioned to me, was the fact that you were able to, that it was organized rules across the entire sport. So that to me that is so insane to me, to think that you have to make, I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but when you have so many different factions, right? You have so many different personalities. I mean, we've all been in a meeting trying to brainstorm, and and you're all trying to you're all trying to do one common goal, and there's like 10 of you on a project, or 20, where you're talking about a worldwide league that has, decided to modernize, change a track, keep the spirit, be inclusive. You have all these ideas, and you're creating a charter per se, and then you're creating rules, and then you're putting those out there. And now everybody's like, when I watch this sport, I know that these are rules that are league wide, that we all say, even if I do a pickup game. When I do a pickup game, I know that these are the rules that everybody agreed on, that we're organized with. And I find that to be so like awesome, that happened. Can you talk a little bit more? Because I know one of the things also that you mentioned was that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the athletes have to own 50% of the team or the league to be part of this, to be part of the derby lead,
the governing body.
the governing
Yeah.
body. So yeah, if you could tell us a little bit more about that and how that, that's just mind blowing to me.
Yeah. So in those early days, when everybody started picking up flat track and sort of figuring out like how to play, and everybody did it a little bit differently and had varying levels of skating experience, there was a general understanding of a game structure, but there was no universal agreement as to how the game would be played. And so what happened when teams started playing interleague games was there would be house rules, and we've all played sports as kids, and like whoever makes the rules obviously wins the game because they sort of
right.
towards them. And so there was a group of women that had the insight to put together a coalition to sit down together with each copy of the rules that they were all playing by and say, like, what do these all have in common? And then how can we make this equitable and fair across all games so that when we're preparing to come play you and you're preparing to come play us, we're not throwing a fit over your unfair house rules and vice versa. And like, let's make this like a real fun, fair game. And so that initial iteration of a governing body was called the United Coalition of Leagues. And the ULC eventually evolved into what is now the governing body of the sport, and that is the Women's Flat Track Derby Association, the WFTDA. And the WFTDA represents leagues in, I think it's like 25 countries, and it's about 500 clubs that the org represents. And that's only a fraction of the number of teams that actually exist. There was a roller derby world census in, I think, 2016 or 15, and it showed that there were people playing roller derby in like 72 countries. Wow. And that there were over 2,500 clubs or teams or rec programs around the world. And so the member clubs of the governing body are a fraction of the actual representation, but the governing body, the WFTDA, the rules that were agreed upon by this organization are the rules that are almost completely universal to all of those clubs. There's one other rule set that some people use, but it's quite different, and I would say that the WFTDA's rule set is the universal. It's the rules that you expect to play if you show up to a pickup scrimmage anywhere. And so it was those women in the early days that had the vision to create this. They also had the vision to say, like, number one, we want everyone to feel like they have a voice in the evolution of these rules, right? Like every other sport has a precedent for annual rule updates. It happens in football, it happens in hockey, whether it's a safety clarification or because players are smart enough to stretch the rules, which is kind of like one of my favorite things about sports, when players get creative enough to create strategies that beat certain rules. But they really wanted to democratize that and make sure that everybody had a seat at the table in the development of the game itself. And so every year there was an annual meeting that people would fly to one place, and we would have essentially almost like a UN conference style weekend of meetings. It always happened on Memorial Day weekend, so that we had 3 days to, have all of these seminars and work sessions to say, like, hey, we've noticed this trend start to happening. That's a safety issue. So we should build a rule into the rule set that mitigates the safety issue that manipulating this particular part of the game has created. And sort of debating out what is good for the game and what's not good for the game. An example that I think a lot of people use when we're talking about roller derby rule changes is thinking about like the shot clock in basketball.
Sure. Yeah.
So, there have been lots of, as with any very young sport, like you get some really smart athletes in there and you let them break the rules apart. And like, that's a really fun part of the game too, is like seeing like what you can push the limits to. I know some people have like feelings about like athletes that play that style, but I think it's incredibly important for sports to have those athletes to really test the limits.
Well, I think we've seen
So
that with like X Games coming up, right? With the X Games. Like
yeah,
I would have never thought that something like skateboarding would become an Olympic sport, or snowboarding,
Right.
or more of these
hmm
games that are not a traditional from what what we collectively think is a traditional sport, because it's not
yeah,
taught in the gyms.
right.
Right.
It's not like something that is like part of your PE. I mean, I
hmm
wish I would love that to be part of my PE. Roller derby as PE, I would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
you know?
think that it's funny that you say that, because there are some of us that talk about like what the future of the sport looks
Mm,
like, and I think a lot of us agree that at the point that it becomes available in an academic setting or as an academic extracurricular is
mhm,
kind of the point when we think that we'll see a tipping point. Uh, in a similar way that hockey became more
mhm.
popular, like as soon,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
as soon as it enters schools and kids start playing it, like
right,
that's when it really can take off.
right.
There are a lot of juniors programs that facilitate the growth of the sport at a young age, but the
Mm,
juniors programs are certainly um, they cropped up sort of after the first wave of women's teams cropped up, and it was
mhm.
sort of because like a lot of the women playing were moms and they wanted their kids to
Right.
play too,
Mhm,
and then and it sort of has evolved from there. But
mhm,
on the ownership side, I think what's really important and very cool about roller derby is that early set of women also said, what we don't want is a situation where we build something so cool that we lose control of it. And because what that looks like for women's sports is much different than what that looks like for men's sports. When you
yeah.
lose control of a women's sport and you leave that in the hands of people who have money, um, sometimes it feels okay, and sometimes it feels like women are a commodity to be consumed as athletes.
Mhm, mhm,
And that is the thing that I think we all really didn't want.
mhm,
And I think that that is what really makes the sport revolutionary, is that we baked into the membership guidelines that the organizations need to be skater owned and operated, and that the
mhm.
skaters need to have a voice for what they want to do with their bodies and for what they want to see from their sport, because
Right.
we're not getting
Right.
paid to play. And so we should have full control over what that looks like. There should never be
Mhm,
a situation where there is an investor that comes in and says, like, you guys need to wear lingerie and you need to play like
mm,
this and
Yeah.
you need to
Mm-mm.
yeah.
stage this. Like, part of the reason why I was attracted to roller derby, having played sports my whole life, was that actual story, was that
Mhm.
I'd seen roller derby and I was like, oh, this looks kind of corny. But then when somebody was like, yeah, but like no dude's ever going to come in and turn this into lingerie football, I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm
Nice.
Right.
in.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that there's just, there's an inherently different attitude towards how like women are consumed in the media in general,
Mhm,
than how men are consumed. And
mhm.
I'm sure you have
Yeah.
other questions that I can get into further.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think,
Yeah. Go ahead, Karen.
yeah, we see it a lot of times with like the WNBA, right? Men will diminish the skill set of the women and be like, oh, a high school team, a boys'
Mhm.
high school team can beat them. And I think there's some kind of, we're triggering their little masculinity because there's these strong women and they don't want to see that. Like you said, they want to watch powder puff football with women in lingerie. They think we can't be athletes, but we need to be part of their entertainment or their gaze. And it's really interesting. And I think that's kind of the few snippets I've seen of roller derby. There's such a strength and beauty to it because,
Mhm.
like you said, they can be flashy, personalities are out, but they're just kicking ass, and there's a beauty to that. And I think that's what makes it so unique. And I love learning that it's owned by the athletes. I think that's
Mhm.
what makes it even
Mhm.
more better and continues to be in that space.
And I think the thing like with that is that we're not doing it for anybody but ourselves.
Mhm.
Right.
That makes it really special, right? Like we don't have huge crowds to impress. Like we have fans, we have people that come to our games,
Mhm.
we have an amazing community, but like we're not doing it for anyone else. And that is so special because roller derby really attracts people at a time in their lives when they need that community. And
Mhm.
like there is something so important about women uplifting other women. And
Oh
there's
yeah,
something
for sure.
so
Yep.
necessary in the community that you build in playing sports. It's the thing that I think is the most special about sports that I refuse to let men have control over.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, you know, to the your point about basketball, like, this is something that I get very frustrated with other sports, is that women are judged and compared to the male version of their sport because women are adapting to and playing a sport that was built for and by men. And the thing
True.
about roller derby that is incredibly special is that it was built by us for us.
Mm,
And
Right.
so we are not playing a men's game. We are playing our game. We
Mm.
don't have to be compared to a predecessor version of the sport, you know,
right.
and that's another reason why the evolution of what the sport looks like is very important, because we can say, like, there's a hard cutoff of when that old version ended and this new
Mm,
one began, and this new generation is not that. And we are
right.
not, you know, we're not a show to be consumed, but if you want to
Right.
watch like a really cool sport, like, this
Right.
is a very cool sport. There is
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
so much strategy. This is like a thinking person's sport.
yeah.
And, you know, anybody who looks at roller derby and thinks that it's boring, you know, I ask them, like, what they think somebody who watches football for the first time thinks. You know, like, I
Mm,
hear a lot of people say, like, well, I don't know what's going on. The rules look too complicated. Like, I can't
Right.
figure it out fast enough. So
right.
there's something wrong with your rules. And I'm like, the first time you watched football, did you know what was going on?
That's
Right.
still why I can't get into football. I'm
Yeah.
like, what?
Like, the first time you watched hockey, did you know what was going on? Like,
Yeah.
I
like,
still don't.
there are so there's so much intricacy in rules, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that, like, you know, one of the criticisms that we've heard over and over is that it's not, like, quickly consumable enough, because all that tells me is that, like, they're like, oh, well, you're not doing gymnastics and doing a flip, so I don't understand what you're doing. How could you possibly be playing a strategic and
Right.
complex game? Like,
Right.
Right. Right. Yeah, that was when we spoke. One of the thing that, like, a light bulb like clicked was when you said, we're not called women's roller derby. It was like roller derby, right? Whereas other sports, it's like
Mm-hmm.
women's basketball, women's soccer, women's football. It would always has to be put in context when it is not just men's, because men's football it would be football, soccer. And
football.
so
Mhm.
yeah, and
Right.
so with roller derby, it's roller derby full stop, and that is what you're seeing. You're going to see female athletes,
Yeah.
and also you do have inclusivity. You're not like, hey, you know what? So talk a little bit about that, because
Yes.
because it
That.
does kind of sound like it's only the women, but I know that you've
Mhm.
talked about inclusivity, so you could share on that as well.
Yeah, and I think it is a very important distinction. Is, you know, our governing body does have a W on it. You know, I think just
Mhm.
because of the time that it was created, and I think that it's an ongoing conversation as to whether or not that's an appropriate name moving forward. But the one thing that our sport has tried to do the entire time is create some kind of inclusivity for essentially anyone that isn't a, like, cis male athlete.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so we do have an inclusive gender policy, and we do absolutely have non-binary and trans skaters that participate in the sport. And the rule is, it's pretty simple, actually. It's just like, if women's roller derby is the version of the sport that you most closely identify with, then it is your sport.
Mhm.
And so, you know, certainly there are lots of people that have opinions about that. There are lots of, you know, I know that that could be an entire other episode
Right.
talking
Oh
about
yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
like trans and non-binary people in
Yeah.
sports. And, you know, I will not be shy about the fact that I think that everybody belongs in sports, and that
Mhm.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous to suggest that people should have separate teams, or that
Sure.
people should be excluded. Um, but, you know, it is really important to us to have an inclusive community. And sometimes it's hard to live up to that aspiration, because everybody's understanding of um, fairness or concept of inclusivity is incredibly different.
Right.
So I won't say that, that it's a perfect utopian world. It's certainly an ongoing conversation, but I feel very proud that at Angel City specifically, like we have had, a very like gender expansive,
Mhm.
diverse array of identities that have been a part of all iterations of our
Mhm.
teams. And I personally think that has made us, a much richer community.
Mhm.
And it's, I want to play with whoever wants to play with me.
Right.
Like that's
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
anyone who shows up and wants to skate and wants to play my sport and really sees the beauty in it.
Yeah.
I'm down. Let's play.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what's really important. I think that's such a good point. Before, because I definitely want to dive into Angel City, because as I alluded at the top of this interview, there is a soccer league that came in that's also using Angel City as their name. But before we dive into that, I did want to bring up this fascinating article that you sent me about how um, essentially women's roller derby, you guys rolled out a COVID plan on how to play that was it was so in depth, and it was really able to be adapted to any sport. And I know Wired magazine featured you earlier in July, like July 2nd article. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, because COVID, as part of what we're seeing. Like currently today, you have MLB that's ready to shut down. You have WNBA and I'm sorry, MLB that wants to totally shut down. WNBA and NBA that are working in this bubble. So, pretty much like telling people we have control of your life as long as you're playing this game. You have NFL toying with like, what should we do? MLB really fucked up it for us, but we can't bubble. So, the only, I would say, successful league that was the first league to go off was the National Women's Soccer League. They had their
Absolutely.
Challenge Cup. So they've been the only league thus far that's been able to pop off and have their entire like season in their championship. So far, WNBA has been able to be, they're good. NBA has a few things that they're working through, but for the most part, they've been testing negative for COVID. So I would love for you to talk about a little bit more about this plan that you guys created, and then how it rolled out. And, because I find that another thing that is really important that's coming out of the roller derby sport.
Yeah. So, the important thing to say for me is always that, like, we as a roller derby, like the royal
Mhm.
we don't have the same kinds of resources as professional
Mhm.
sports, right? Like I said, none of us get paid. The governing body, has been able to, monetize certain things in certain ways to create budget and opportunity but all of the money that's ever made from the governing body goes directly back into the sports development.
Mhm.
And so, one of the things that we found ourselves talking about early on in COVID was that we knew we weren't going to get what we needed from professional sports.
Mhm.
We knew, like, we were keeping an eye out, of course. We wanted to see what professional sports were going to come up with, what kind of, with all of their millions of dollars of resources, we thought for sure somebody would come up with something. And when it became incredibly apparent that wasn't going to happen, the WFTDA assembled a team of epidemiologists and frontline workers to start to outline what safe guidelines could actually look like for a full contact sport. And it was additionally important, because the the implications of an amateur sport are very different from a professional sport. Like, we have an entire community of people to protect that, they're not getting paid millions of dollars or hundreds of
Right.
thousands of dollars to play their sport. They're playing like a community, for the vast majority of the community, like a pickup sport,
Right.
right? A hobby. And so it was really important to give guidelines for the entire community that would protect the entire community. So we started using this language, you know, that we were going to put lives before laces. You know, like, of course we want to get back to playing. Like,
Right.
we love roller derby. We love sports. We want to get back out there, but it cannot happen if we are putting all of our members at risk, who are then putting their communities at risk, who are then putting, you know, families at risk, their workplaces at risk. Like, these aren't people that, like, you know, go to their sport and then go home to, you know, their houses and then just go train every day. Like, everyone's lives are incredibly expansive. So, what happened was the development of a 7-tiered return to play program that has very clear guidelines as to, like, when your city's number of cases is this multiplier, this is when you can return to this version of the sport. So starting out with, like, non-contact, and starting with, you know, rebuilding the basics for teams, and then you know, slowly building back into contact as cases diminish or as a vaccine is developed. And it's very clear and easy to follow. And then, you know, one of the departments in the organization also developed return to play, like, training guidelines as well, to help with, you know, like, we've all been sitting around for 5 months. Like, we probably are going to need to get back into shape and, you know, like, knock the rust off. And so there's a companion guide as well. And, but again, like, with the idea that, like, we're not trying to rush it, because, like, MLB is the perfect example of, like, rushing it. And, you know, I live in Los Angeles, so cases here are still spiking. You know, California, I think today announced that they had surpassed 500,000 cases. So there's just no way that we're going to be able to safely return right now. But we have a benchmark available to us telling us when it will be potentially safe to return. And so what happened is we put this out to the community. The WFTDA, you know, published it, and they held, like, a keynote, virtual keynote mid-May, and they said, we've developed these guidelines. Here's the form where you can request access to this document. We will send it to, you know, every club that requests access to it. No charges. Like, we just want the community to be safe. That first wave of requests was, I think, 680 clubs requested access to it. 99% of them were roller derby clubs. There was, like, a few one-off non-roller derby requests. But then on July 2nd, when Wired published that story, we saw a huge shift in who was requesting access to the plan. It went from being, you know, instead of 99% roller derby, it was 80% other sports. We got an additional, like, 275 requests for the plan, and 80% of them were non-roller derby teams. They were coaches or parents of youth sports. They were college sports. They were high school sports. They were other independent sports. I think I saw, like, Quidditch was one of them on there. Like, you know, like, everything you can possibly think of. Like, people were reaching out, and because they had seen that, like, there were epidemiologists saying, like, this is the most responsible plan that we have seen. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. And so to be able to provide something that, you know, professional sports couldn't provide and still can't necessarily provide, I think just shows the power of an organization that has, like, truly been, you know, run, like, from a grassroots effort and from a place of emotional accountability. And honestly,
say it. Say it. I know
women are just, we just, like, I think we just give a shit in a different way. We care about people and not
it's a different way. That's the thing. It's like, when, I don't know, like, when we give, it's not because we're trying to take from something else. You know, it's just like, hey, here you go, here it is. It's not about, I think a lot of times people see it as, like, well, if I share, then that takes from my storage or my
Right.
wealth or my knowledge or my power.
Mhm.
And I mean, do you want to actually cure something, create something, make things better? Okay, then that's the place you need to come from, and not a place of like, if I keep it all in, then I'm the only one that's going to get all the goods.
Right.
Right.
It's not coming from a place of scarcity. It's not a zero sum
Right.
game, right?
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, that's the thing. And like the beauty of this conversation is that this actually, it's like, it's the perfect segue and the perfect, you know, it sets the tone for what is happening in the world, what is happening like in the civil rights movement that we're living in
Mhm.
right
Yes,
now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's that like there is this scarcity mentality of like if we share wealth, if we share resources, if we say that, you know, that Black Lives Matter, that is somehow taking away from something else, and
Right.
that
Yep.
is like that is inherently the difference in the people who believe that Black Lives Matter and the
Yep.
people who do not.
Yeah.
And so and I think that like that principle has been, you know, a guiding light for us, you know, like separated from all of this. It's been that we are stronger if we share resources. We
Mhm.
are better if we have this like shared economy. I mean, like the sharing economy is a multi-billion-dollar economy
Oh yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
So why we can't apply this in other ways is like beyond me, but
Right.
it's literally the foundation of how the sport was built. Like we
Mhm.
were built because people shared their rules with each other. We were built because people shared their ideas of how to set up a league together.
Right.
It was built because we shared ideas and like workshopped the rules. It was all built on a shared effort.
Right.
And so, you know, it's why it's so insulting to me when people, when like men specifically, especially ones in like the entertainment business or the sports business, come to me and they say like, let me fix your sport, let me make it like what it should be, like whatever that should in air quotes actually is. All that is like a measurable goal to like what they think is valuable, because it is what has been
Right.
modeled by men's sports for the last 100 years.
Right.
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 But they're missing the fact that I never asked for that. We never asked for that.
What?
We are
Right.
not.
Who?
Yeah. Right.
It's
Who
like that.
asked?
It's like that. It's that meme where it's like no one, absolutely no
Yeah.
one, and then like this,
Yes.
Yep.
like let me save you from yourself. It's like
It's crazy.
So true.
It's so true
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
crazy.
And what I heard is like, let me make so much money off your sport for
that
me.
part.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For me. Yep.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many pitches I've received over the years, like for people that are like, "Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna turn like, we're gonna hold an open tryout, and we're gonna make 8 teams, and we're gonna like, you know, like they're basically gonna turn it into like Legends of the Hidden Temple, where it's gonna be like the Blue Barracuda, the Green Monkeys." And they're like, you know, and all that they're asking is to take the hard work that people have put in for the last 20 years and to just like hand it over to the people who can make it
Right.
flashier because they know better
Mhm.
than us. And like,
Right.
I disagree. You don't know better than us. You may have the money, but
Right.
that is what this
Yeah.
entire like the last 10 years, I would even say very concentrated in the last 5 years, that is the principle that is being challenged.
Right.
Is that like you don't have to hand over the power to the people who have money. Instead, you challenge the people who have the power.
Right.
And you
That-
demand a redistribution of the power, and you demand a creative redistribution of the money. And the thing that is so remarkable about women is that if we don't have it, we will make it. We will
Right.
get those resources. We will
Yep.
find a way.
Believe, bet.
We will find a way
Figure
to
it out.
survive.
Bet. I
Yep.
mean, this podcast was,
Yep.
you can bet it was done because we were like, we don't see it, so we're going to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tired of making content that we think is trash, but
Yeah.
has money behind it. And
also to your point, you would believe, because it's happened to you, how many times we were told how to do this.
mhm.
Yeah. And
You
it's
know?
just like at what point are people going to accept the fact that you don't have to recreate something that already exists for it to be successful?
Right.
Like
Mhm.
we see it time and time again. There's always these like unicorn stories of people being like, I did it differently and I didn't listen to anybody. And,
Right.
and
And
yet
it worked.
people don't let that happen organically. There are still people that are like, that'll never work. And it's like,
Right.
I mean, I don't know why you guys decided to start the podcast, but honestly, like I'm elated that you did, because what I am always looking for is like more women talking about sports
Mhm.
and talking about the value of sport and the value of community, because I'm sick of hearing men talk about sports, because what
Yes.
the community that I have experienced in sport, like when I hear men talk about it, it's not the same. There
Mhm.
are glimmers of it. Like, believe you me, I can watch a sports documentary and get all of the feels from it. Like, I
Right.
love sports
Yes.
content. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like that emotional thing that, like, that like being on a team brings. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm with it.
Right.
But still, our experiences in it are different. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
like, that should be respected,
Mhm.
pulled into someone else's vision of what it should look like.
Extreme,
Mhm.
extreme, extreme. I mean, it boils down to, like, to your point, what are the goals that you are trying to, get to, right? What is the goals? Is your vision reaching those goals? And if that doesn't have to be like, I always say, we'll take the money, but we didn't, but the $1 million,
But
is
we
not
didn't start
something.
doing it for the money.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
Like,
I mean, we didn't get no money.
We're losing money here.
and like, the thing that's so funny to me is that, like, think about how celebrated men are when they say things like, I do it for the love of the game. Like, they're just like, people are like,
Right.
oh my God, what a great person. But if women say that, they're like, you're an idiot.
Right.
Right.
And I'm like, what is this? Like,
So true.
I like,
Right.
we truly are we are a perfect example of doing it for the love of the game, for the
Yeah.
love of the sport, and for the love of the community, because we literally don't get anything out of it other than that, like, other than the feeling,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
other than that thing that you get when you play sports that's so special, when you connect with
Yeah.
people. And like, it's incomparable to any other feeling in the world.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I just, like, I don't want to, like, tarnish that. I want to be mindful about how we build that and who we
Right.
support, and like, who we make our community available to, which is
Right.
why inclusivity
Mhm.
is so important. It's like, everybody should be able to find community through sport. Like, moving our bodies is like the most special act of personal care that you can do.
Right.
Yep.
It's just like, I mean, there's plenty of
Definitely.
science to support that, like the
Oh yeah.
endorphins are good, and like the
Mhm.
way that
Right.
the
Yeah.
way that your body responds is good. Like,
Yeah.
we know that stuff. And so you just have to make it available to people and stop trying to gatekeep who can play and who cannot, and who deserves to profit off of it and who deserves to play. It's like,
Yeah.
everybody deserves it, just like everybody deserves to live safely in their communities, just like
That's
Yes.
right.
everybody
Mhm.
deserves to go buy candy at a store and not have to worry about getting shot, just like
Yeah.
Right.
everybody deserves to be able to sleep in their own bed and not be shot by the police. Like,
Yep.
Right. Go
everybody
on a run.
deserves, like,
Yep.
go on a run and
Mhm.
not be chased down by three racist assholes. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
everyone just
Absolutely.
deserves the right to exist and to, like, be happy and
Yeah.
find the thing that gives them joy.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I think roller derby, uh, I just felt so akin to what, we're doing in all sports really, is because it's not just this, it has a lot of social activism in it just by its
Mhm.
existence, and by the fact that it was created by women. And I want to dive into something, and I wasn't trying to be like controversial with trying to bring up Angel City, the soccer league that has come into Los Angeles, but I think it's a good conversation to have, because when we heard that a woman owned invested soccer league
Yep.
was going to expand here in Los Angeles. And it was called Angel City, and it felt grassroots because there was an organization called Bring NWSL to Los Angeles.
Mhm.
And we were like, woo, 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 this is amazing, because we all think it's amazing, right? We all like celebrate that.
Right.
And on the flip side, when, when I was looking at Angel City trending, as I mentioned earlier, I started to see Angel City Derby coming up, and that community just kind of lighting on fire, saying, yo, 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 pause, pump the brakes. We are Angel City. We've been here. Hi, can we talk? Can we collaborate? And when you and I talked about that, it was more like you were like, dude, I'm down for them. I'm so excited as well. I love sports. I love women's sports. I love that it was owned by women. And you're like, but hi, we are here. Can you come talk to me? You even put your email out on Twitter, which is how I connected with you, because I was like, fuck, I'll email you. You can come talk to us about that, and talk to us about, all the world of Durban Angel City. So maybe I'm trying to figure out, I think there's going to be some camps that are going to say, you know what, get over it. You're a roller derby. Ugh. It's not even really a real sport. There's going to be those people. We don't agree with that, but there's that side of things. Sure. And there's the other side that are going to be like, okay, well, what can we do? I mean, is there any what happened and I would think, because Angel City, because we talked about this in the last episode, and Kendall brought up a good point, the fact that it is women investors, it is women owned, it is a women's league, that we have to know that the way that they're coming at this sport is going to be different than the men, right? Than what we've just discussed about their goal orientation being it's broke, we're going to fix it. Let's get all the monies and use your bodies to do that. You got to think that especially the women that are associated with this, they're coming at it from the perspective that we all champion, that we all accept, that we're all. So I would love for you to, talk a little bit about that. Maybe, how you felt that day and how the community is feeling, and if they've reached out to you, or what's happening now, what has happened since that announcement, and moving forward with Angel City Derby.
Yeah. So like you said, I want to acknowledge first and foremost how remarkable it is to see a women-led, women-invested team come to Los Angeles. I think that it is an incredibly huge step, and so I certainly don't wish to diminish the hard work that has taken. I want to celebrate it. 100%. And also I love soccer. So I want to go to all those games, and I want to cheer for them. I love that we're going to have a women's soccer team in LA. My, the headquarters for my business, our CEO is in Portland. And so half of our office is up there. Every time I go up there, we go to a Thorns game. I'm a big soccer fan, big NWSL fan. And so it's not lost on me how remarkable the announcement is. But it was a very bittersweet day, because we've been around for 15 years, and we have worked really hard and been met with a lot of roadblocks to develop recognition, both sport recognition and name recognition, in Los Angeles, especially having, no support. Everything we built on the backs of the community members. And so, yeah, it's just what a mixed bag of feelings, right? To feel really happy for this other group of women, but also to have to know that there is going to be laid in front of us a struggle for name recognition we've never seen before. We've always struggled with that. But now it's the money that we used to put behind Google AdWords, right? So that when people look for, local women's sports, or people who look up the words Angel City, we used to put money behind all those, but now those AdWords we're going to be completely priced out of them. The searchability, the SEO, we don't have a huge marketing team. We literally have a team of volunteers that built our website, that build our events, built out our ticketing, built out literally every single thing about our organization was built by volunteers. And Sure, we would have loved to have had investors, and it's not that we haven't even looked for them. We have. It's just that nobody believed in us enough to want to contribute to that, but through anything else other than like buying a ticket or buying a t-shirt. And so we've scraped together these resources over 15 years to, not with the goal of ever like being profitable or creating an empire or anything like that, but literally just with the goal of being able to provide a place for people to come play a sport that they can't play anywhere else. For a place for people to have a community. And then, you know, and with the added benefit of like, we had some really talented people in our league. And so, you know, we also, in the meantime, built a very robust world-class training program, and we have become, you know, one of the top teams in the world because of it. So out of the 500 WFTDA leagues, we are number 8 in the world. And we have been in the top 10, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've been in the top 10 for the last 8 years consecutively. We have qualified for the World Championships the last 7 consecutive years. You know, we've built something really special from nothing. So, and I have no, you know, I have no misunderstandings about the fact that we don't own the phrase Angel City. There are, of course, other companies in Los Angeles that utilize that nickname the same way with in Chicago people call it, you know, Windy City, or New York they call it the Big Apple, right? Like cities have nicknames. We totally get that. But those other businesses that don the city nickname, they don't necessarily have the same, they don't come with the same issues of brand confusion or like searchability confusion. When, you know, we're bidding on the same sports keywords, we're bidding on the same women's sports keywords, we're building, you know, it's just a different layer of confusion, you know. And like a lot of people were quick to point out that like Angel City Brewery is a very popular brewery here. And to which I was like, well, yes. And they also used to be a longtime sponsor of our league. So like we have experience working with, you know, like named organizations. And so my hope is that we have an opportunity to work with the Angel City Football Club in some way. I don't know what that looks like yet, but to build a support network for women's sports, because I think that like Los Angeles, we all just remember where we are, is a city that has multiple professional men's teams in every other professional sport. There are 2 soccer teams, there are 2 football teams, there are 2 basketball teams, and there are 2 baseball teams. We literally have duplicates of all of the men's sports, and we have none of the professional women's sports. And so I would really love to see an effort in earnest for us to create a women's network of sports and support, because the people who are going to be fans of the NWSL are absolutely going to have overlap, and they're with roller derby. Like our fans are going to go to their games and vice versa. And I think that that's a huge opportunity for us to co-market, to like do some really cool collaborations together, to like uplift different kinds of, you know, women supporting women. I just think that there's a huge opportunity. So I see, you know, again, it was a very bittersweet day. I felt so incredibly excited for them. But then also I was like, well, we don't have like 50 celebrities backing us financially. And so, you know, I understand why folks in the community were a little bit miffed by it. You know, it was, you know, one of the things that a lot of the, you know, the people in our community were pointing out is that, you know, utilizing the same name just affects our visibility. It drowns us out of conversations in a lot of ways. And it feels like dismissing or overlooking a long established women's sport by the same name just perpetuates the same systems that women's sports are trying to dismantle. And, you know, their entire campaign, like that they launched, was about community and women uplifting women. And so I think the ask is just like, okay, if you believe this, like we need to talk, like we need to work together. Like, please don't be the thing. Like my heart would break if a women's sport was the reason why we like disappeared.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, crushing.
like
Yeah.
that would just be like the most heartbreaking thing. Whereas like if
Right.
it was a men's sport, I would just be like pissed off and burn it all down. But like um but yeah, like for it to be a women's sport, it's a totally different thing. So
Yeah.
you know, we have not had formal conversations with anybody at Angel City or Angel City Football Club,
Mhm.
nor have we had formal conversations with anybody at the NWSL. But the you know, I think she's the president of the Players Association for the NWSL. She was on a panel about COVID-19 with the executive director of the WFTDA this week.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I know that it is on her radar.
Mm.
And I have had some conversations behind the scenes of people who want to put us in touch with the right people when it's the right time, but also knowing that the club is very much getting off the ground right now.
Mm.
That like there's not a whole lot that anybody is doing.
Mm.
So I do have some confidence that those conversations will happen. I don't
Mm.
necessarily like know what will come of them, but I am choosing positivity, and
I love it.
I'm choosing to believe that they will, you know, believe in community the way that they say that they do.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Yeah.
um,
For sure.
you know,
Yeah.
my little athlete heart like wants to believe that,
Yeah.
you know, and that like, you know, and that everything will work out the way that it needs to.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a blind spot, there. And that's kind of where I was like, oh, I'd love to know more about this because I don't want my joy to hurt someone else, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term
Mhm.
or phrase. I want us to all share in this joy, which I think we can, but at the same time, having that blind spot of something that could be diminished or could be, disappear, to your point, which is already in a delicate ecosystem.
Hmm.
As I can see how star power and money can eradicate things
Well,
that they
and
don't mean to, in a sense.
yeah, and with like COVID, you know, affecting
That's right.
everybody, we don't have the income sources that normally keep our overhead paid. And so right now we're fighting to save our facility. Like we are a registered nonprofit, so luckily like any donations we receive are tax deductible. So if anybody on
Mm.
the show wants to donate, please go to our website.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but we, you know, we are our bank account is draining quickly. You know,
Mm.
you don't nobody knows how to prepare for something like this.
Hmm.
And our financial structure, because nobody's trying to profit off of it, like I said, has always been to just make sure that we can create the place for people to come to like
Right.
essentially have a community center for it. And so right
Mm.
now the biggest thing in jeopardy for us is our facility, our training facility that is in
Mhm.
Gardena. You know, we could lose it at any point. Luckily, there are
Mm.
laws protecting us from eviction, and you know, we are like, you know, paying partial rent to keep things together. But like,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to pay that back, and at some
Right.
point,
Right.
what the partial rent that we are paying, that money will run out as well, and we're
Right.
doing our best to, you know, implement some different fundraising opportunities. But again, as another like incredible testament to who our community is, like our community really expressed the desire to put a pause on our fundraising needs during the month of June, especially because they didn't want to detract any sort of attention from the Black Lives Matter movement.
Mm.
And so, you know, I think that just tells you like everything you need to know about like the kind of
Yeah.
special people that are a part of, but that are part of our club, that are
Yeah.
part of our community. Like they were like, you know, fundraising right now is not the right
Sure.
thing to do.
Sure.
Right.
And so now we're like, you know, having open community conversations
Mm.
in our weekly town hall meetings where we're like, you know, when do we feel like this would be appropriate again,
Right.
to like run a campaign in earnest to try to pay the rent for a little
Right.
until we can come
Right.
back.
Well, this is really important information too, because I think that, as a independent or a small business, we're seeing this nationwide, with what's happening with COVID. And, the fact that, you're just trying to make the ends meet, to the end of the month. I mean, it's already August 1st. today. So, the
Mhm.
rent's due and all of that other stuff. And so, while we're seeing the resurgence of return of a lot of these major professional sports, you could say that about like, hey, a lot of these larger corporations are going to fare well through this pandemic. And so when you think about these smaller grassroots, and I know we've had this discussion and it's probably another podcast, but even when we think about like the funnel, right?
Yeah.
Where are these young athletes, the youth programs in places where they need that money, they need that investment so that we can continue to have these athletes grow from different sports. And that's not just like derby or something that may not be a widely franchise, but we're talking about like little league
Yeah.
and all
Everything.
those everything, all those youth sports that are creating a funnel for the future of what we are enjoying today. And that's a really good discussion to be had, and I'm so glad that you shared that with us, because I think we lose sight of what is also being lost in these days, because you just can't make the money, you just can't pay the bills. And it's not just like, oh well, I can't go on that vacation, or oh I can't, it's like no, it's an erosion
Mm-hmm.
of at a very local
Mm-hmm.
level of how
Yep.
we're going to keep investing in youth programs that will help facilitate these bigger franchises.
Yeah, and that was
Mhm.
definitely a consideration when the WFTDA was developing the return to play plan with the team of epidemiologists. Is like, I was talking with the executive director about how we wanted to like talk about this plan to the media, and the thing that we agreed upon, was that women's sports and amateur sports and youth sports are the
Mhm.
sports that will suffer the most.
Yeah.
Professional men's sports will
Yep.
not suffer the same way coming out of COVID. Like they're spending so much money to try to get their shit back on TV and to try to,
Mhm.
Yep.
get their sports started back up quickly, and obviously falling flat on their faces in many cases.
Mhm.
And it is so upsetting to me to watch them hemorrhage the money that it costs to really force themselves back into play when they
Yep.
could just be investing in communities instead.
Mhm.
That is the thing about sports that like is
Yep.
the most upsetting to me, is like
Yep.
the ecosystem of how money is made is incredibly unethical when you look at like how college sports are
Oh
monetized and
yeah.
how
Oh yeah.
like, I mean,
Nope.
don't even like, I can't even, we could do a whole other
I
episode
know,
on
trust
that.
Yeah.
me.
Part
It-
two.
yeah, seriously. We've
But
had a lot of guests on here that have talked about NCAA in particular.
yeah, it's
Right.
it's it's heartbreaking that like that money is not reinvested into sporting communities and into the pipeline of growth of people, because it's not just about the growth of athletes, it's also about cultivating lifelong fans. Like the people
Mhm.
who support sports for the rest of their lives are almost always athletes themselves. Like yeah, of course, like there's going
Mhm.
to be people that have like local city pride, and they're fans of their football team since birth and blah blah blah, but like, I mean, the ecosystem, the pipeline is really truly like contingent upon people who played sports, who played the sport that they end up following for the rest of their lives,
Yeah.
as a kid. And then it also, one in every, 10,000 of those kids becomes the next superstar of the sport. And so it all ends up giving back eventually. It just breaks my heart that we haven't, I don't mean we women, I mean the men in charge. It breaks my heart that we/they have not come up with a better way to invest that money into communities, that everybody has been so
Mhm.
much more interested in getting rich and in advertising dollars than they are in developing out programs that have clear benefits on people for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
Right.
And then you make back that money in fans. You make
Yep.
back that money in spades, because those people, when you have those feeder teams, when you have those feeder programs, when you
Mhm.
create that lifelong identity of a baseball player, a football player, a basketball player, like those people go to their Dodgers game, their Lakers game, they want to support because they have a respect for what they see happening out there, because they know how hard it is to do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
They know
Yeah.
how hard it is to perform at an elite level, because as an amateur athlete, like when you don't get there, you have respect for knowing that like it's really hard to get there. You
Yeah.
really put aside so much of your life to get there.
Yeah.
Right.
And so just like the way that money is treated in sports is like maddening, truly.
So, yeah.
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 I mean, and I would say like these bubbles are just proof of that, right? Like
Oh yeah.
we've been saying since day one before basketball even came back that this is stupid and they shouldn't be coming back. Like there is so much going on in the world right now that they could be putting their resources into. And it just went to prove, like they've got this half-ass Black Lives Matter thing going on in the bubble. Like they've got the names on the back of the jerseys, but they're only a select few things and sayings that the players could pick from. You know, they couldn't really go out and express what they truly wanted to go out and express. So it's like you could have taken all that money of housing these guys in these hotels for however long the bubble is going to happen, the food, the DJs and the barbers and all
The
this stuff.
staff,
You've gotten this. Apparently, they put a bunch of fish into a lake so the guys can go out there and fish.
Right.
Like
I
that money, you could
cannot.
be putting all of that money into social justice programs in your communities and all that kind of stuff. But instead, we've got this half-ass weak bubble that's going
Yeah.
on that I'm sorry. I watched the first few games and I was just kind of like bored with it, to be honest with you. Like
Right.
there's just other things going on right now that like focus on next season. It's just it
Right.
was in the past. There's just so much that you could put your money into. You're right. They
Yeah. And
spend
we
it
and
very
and
poorly.
and we had a guest a couple episodes ago, Josiah Johnson, who said, also it's like the ownership of the social justice goes on the backs of the players at the end of the day, right? Because they're the ones that are having to make all of these actions and are
They're
having
the
to talk
public
of it.
faces.
Yep.
Exactly. And so you're saying to them like, oh, you either get paid and come in here and do this performative, or you don't get paid and you sit out. And it's like, okay, so the
Yep.
thing that you're supposed to be supporting to help the people that we are watching are exactly, what you're not doing. And if you're not seeing
Yep.
that, then that's what's wrong. That
Right.
is
Yep.
that is the bigger picture.
And that's coming from one of the league that does the most when it comes to
Yes,
social
I
justice,
know.
right?
yeah.
That's the tough part of the conversation, right? Is that like the NBA, in my opinion, has done more good for sports than any other sport governing body organization has.
Right.
I have the deepest amount of respect for the investment that they've made in the WNBA and the commitment they've made to continue to fund it even when it's not profitable. Like
Right.
deepest amount of respect for the NBA in that regard. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't still question some of the decision-making processes that then cause like this hemorrhaging of money and resources
Mhm.
that could be directed otherwise. Like
Yeah.
they could make just as much of a statement about Black Lives Mattering by deploying that money into communities,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
deploying that money
Exactly.
into programs that support Black life from birth, that support Black athletes from their youngest ages.
Yep.
So, I do appreciate that they have been way more vocal than other sports. I definitely do.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely appreciate that they have not had to backpedal the way that the NFL has had to backpedal.
Right.
Don't even get me started on the NFL.
I know.
Another episode.
Everybody knows I go bananas. I'm just like, I can't.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because I football is fucking awesome to watch. I love watching football. I also think that some of the athletes are incredible activists and incredible visionaries, but they're owned by an organization that doesn't value their voices. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's
but
very problematic.
it's so tough to even talk about like the kid who's got the best behavior, even still not quite getting it right with
Mhm.
like the behavior that they're modeling.
Yeah.
And so that is where I feel very proud of roller derby modeling good behavior by putting out guidelines that value the community, that value people's lives, that value the fact that like if we don't if the whole community gets sick, if we are unsafe, then like the whole sport dies. And what we want is something to come back to. And I think the very hopeful part of it that like I haven't mentioned yet is that almost like a gift from the heavens. The hobby that everybody has taken up during quarantine is roller skating. Like
Yep.
roller
Yeah,
skating is having a huge
Huge.
that
resurgence
is.
right now, and it's getting a ton of interest from people who have never picked up skates before, or
Yep.
people that always skated that, you know, were from marginalized communities that didn't have places that could skate, because the history of roller rinks is very interesting.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Watch United Skates on HBO if you haven't. But I am so excited about all of the people who are adopting roller skating right now in quarantine, because to me, there is a very real opportunity coming out of COVID. Once there is a vaccine developed, once, you know, we're able to get infection levels under control, there is a humongous opportunity for recruitment and for a boon in the growth of the sport, because people will have a baseline set of skills that they otherwise did not have, because, you know, roller rinks were not supporting that ecosystem. That's not where we were recruiting skaters from. Like, most of our recruitment came from recruiting people who played other sports or people who had never played a sport. And the common denominator was that, like, most of them don't know how to skate, and so we would teach people how to skate from nothing.
Wow.
And so I'm excited to come back, because I truly believe that if we use this time like judiciously, and if we're able to keep our facility intact, and that's the goal, right, is to keep the facility long enough to get the people into it, that what we will have is like an intake of recruitment and an intake of new potential team skaters that are stronger than ever, because they had, you know, a year of skating in the street to build up just the basic skating skill.
Right.
And so that's like, that to me is like that's the light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I'm working for, with trying to, you know, work with everybody in our league, in our club, to make sure that everybody survives, and that we can keep our facility for this time, so that, you know, when the day comes, that we can send out the email that says like recruitment is open, that we have a place for those people to come. And that's like, that is the hope that keeps me like chipping away at this work every single day.
Right. Well, you know, I think this is a good time to just say thank you so much.
Yes.
Big time.
Like, I am so I mean, I love everybody we talk to. I'm just gonna say that now. But like, seriously, like the rekindling of something that I remember being a joyous thing in my life when seeing roller derby. And we used to skate at the Vets Hall. And I remember we skated at Vets Hall in Watsonville. I'm from Watsonville, California. And my aunts and the whole family, it's the only thing we could afford is like $1.
Yeah.
Right.
$1.50, right?
Yeah.
So we would
I
go and
remember
do
that.
that. And it
I'd
had
go skate world.
yeah, right. You go skate or skating pizza parties.
Yeah.
I grew up going to roller rink birthday parties. That's how
Yep.
That's like, that was
Skate
the
world,
jam.
Austin, Texas,
Oh,
baby.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, it was something, I think it's something that's precious to, you know, people from like a memory standpoint, and then like knowing about how it has been modernized and who has modernized it and what, you know, just everything about the evolution. And like I said earlier, like roller derby is the world I want to live in. Like if we could roll out this to the world, I think it'd be a better place to live in. And so I want to thank you so much for coming on here. And I really hope that, you know, we built this podcast so that, you know, we could get this type of message out and, you know, have it as a place to have these conversations. So, you know, tell us, Rachel, what should people visit? Where should they go? Where can they find you? You know, give us all of the information where we can be in contact with you.
Yeah. So you can find the club at angelcityderby.com. That's also our handle on all social media. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, all of them are at Angel City Derby. On our website, we just actually launched a brand new website, coincidentally the same week as the NWSL thing. That was not intentional at all. We actually decided, that we were going to take the quarantine time to do a bunch of housekeeping in the background, and the website was one of them. So, but yeah, we do have a brand new website up. There is a donate button there if you want to support a women's sport, a sport that, is inclusive, that is not just women, but is for everybody. And your donation will be tax deductible. So I have to shameless plug there. And then if you feel like following me personally for whatever reason, my handle on everything is Rachel Death, which I've had since I was like 13. So, but you can also search
screen name.
Yeah, it actually was my AIM screen name, and I never changed it. But yeah, and I also, Rachel, if you just Google Rachel Rotten, I'll pop up, and I'm not the porn star.
That's a choose your own adventure with that name.
Yeah, it's she no longer performs, but every once in a while I get a message that's like, "Are you the porn star?" I'm like, "We literally look nothing alike." We look nothing alike.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow. Well, again, thank you so much. This has
Thank
been
you
such
for
a great
having
pleasure.
me.
Yeah.
Come on anytime.
Absolutely. Yeah, anytime, because I'm sure there's so many other things we could talk about. You can tell us about your updates. I mean, just in general, we would love to have you on again and again, and share out your community and share out roller derby. And guys, please, visit. We'll have all the links in our show notes. So, hey, thank you so much. We totally appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
And we are back. What an amazing guest. Ooh. Rachel Rotten.
Awesome.
Angel City Derby. God, I can't wait for it to come back so that we can go to all the games.
Yeah.
Go to all the games. Yeah, we'll have all the links in our show notes, but go to the website, check out their social pages, and get behind this, because this is awesome. And I have seen a lot of more skaters out there.
And TikTok and Instagram, there's been a lot of the skate dancing videos. I'm just like, dang, bring it back. Fleetwood.
They've been all doing like the Stevie Nicks.
True. Yeah. No, I remember there was a documentary about the skaters in Venice, because it was a huge Black community. It was a Black community of skaters. So, it's been there. It's out there. So
what was that movie? Was it Roll Bounce? Did that have what's his face in it? Little Bow Wow?
Fuck, Roll Bounce. All right, Karen.
Was it? What?
I did not even remember that one.
I gotta check that one out.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, Roll Bounce. There you go.
Roll
I remember
Bounce.
that. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Was that before or after Like Mike?
2011.
Wow. That's a definitely
no, 2005. I'm tripping. That's
wow.
Yep.
That's old.
Dang.
That's old.
And Nick
That's
Cannon.
Right? Nick Cannon, pre-turban, pre-Mariah Nick. Yeah. So we'll have all the sport. Can't wait for sports for roller derby to come back. And we've gone through a lot of stuff. I think we might be ready to take a quick break and then come back with the hoops off. And we are back with the hoops off. Woo! You guys ready? You ready? Karen, you ready? So Karen's going to go first, just for everybody who might not know what hoops off is. This is our 1 minute to rage about something that has entered our minds and is making us real pissed off. So Karen, are you ready? I have a minute on the stopwatch, and 3, 2, 1, go.
My hoops off today is on Jonathan Isaac, the Magic. As folks know, he made a decision, which I can respect if he has valid reason to stand and not wear a BLM shirt during the national anthem. However, his reason when Taylor Rooks asked him why he had done that was so jumbled, and then he leaned on religion. And someone who was raised super Catholic and is kind of like anti-religion now, just can't understand. Let's go back to just everything. What would Jesus do? Do you think Jesus would say, I don't agree with this messaging, so I'm not going to kneel in solidarity with my brothers and I'm not going to wear a shirt? And if that's the case, Isaac, then what are you going to do? What is your message? What is that alternative message that you want to say? And he wants to say there's other things plaguing us. That's the same argument with All Lives Matter. No one's saying that the other things don't matter in life that are plaguing us, but Black Lives matter right now, so everything can matter.
Woo! Okay. Get it. Yeah, I mean, like, isn't like praying and kneeling, like, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought it was.
Yeah, I thought it was. Okay. Yeah, and let's
they
and
can
you're
cherry
right.
pick.
Yeah.
You can
right.
cherry pick when things are good.
But
that's only if it's good for you.
Yeah. And I mean, when I saw his interview, okay, I get the mask, but I still didn't get his reasoning. It was very so I'm almost like, he almost seems like the guy who just forgot his shirt. You know what I mean? And like was like, oh shit, well I better like make it look like this was deliberate.
Yeah, he's the guy that gets to hide during a group project that didn't do any of the work, and you're like, okay, then you know what? You can do the monitor. You can advance the slideshow, I guess. I guess, whatever, dude. Just don't worry about it. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go next. Who's gonna time me?
I gotcha.
Okay, so right. Tell me when to go.
You ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, so I want to call out the fucking ads that come on during CNN and MSNBC during the day. When I'm trying to get information, every single fucking advertisement is about bladder control, wearing diapers, some sort of bed that's going to help me stand without actually using my abs, colon cleansing, and insurance sold by Tom Selleck. I'm like, I get it. Like, midday TV might be by people that are older and are sitting at home, but we're now all safer at home. We're all staying at home, and I want information, and I would really like not to be even more depressed by knowing that I'm dying and that my body can no longer hold urine, and that I'm not going to be able to eat all the salty, delicious foods that I want, and then I'm somehow going to have to like take Metamucil, and I'm going to have to like get a phone that's real giant so I could read the dial. So please fix your ads. We're younger. Information. Don't make me feel worse.
Oh,
that's all I'm saying, guys.
I agree.
You mean you're not going to sign up for Colonial Penn?
I'm not going to sign up for that. Okay.
Did they still have The General? Or is that late night TV?
That's late night, I think.
Cheap car insurance. Call The General.
No, I'm telling you, the big one is bladder control. And not just for the ladies, but for the men. Okay. Wow. Apparently you lose all control of your bladder as you age out. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like,
things to look forward to.
My bones are gonna apparently turn into powder. Like, I'm gonna need to get a jitterbug because I'm not gonna be able to see.
And don't forget your life alerts, because
the buttons that are this big.
If you can't scream loud enough in your apartment for Steven to help you up.
Literally, there's 2 buttons, one for the police and one for an ambulance. That's it on the jitterbug.
The bathtubs that you just walk into with the little door.
Oh yeah, the standing bathtub.
Actually are dope. Always wanted one.
I kind of want one too. I'm like, I don't have
like a hot tub.
I slept in the bathtub one too many times.
Literally, the latest one is this pulley, like it's like a thing with 2 sides where you can use to help pull someone up. So like you grab a hold of one side, they grab a hold of the other, and it helps you pull you up from from any sitting position. And I'm like, oh
yeah, but you gotta live with roommates.
Yeah.
That's not for you. That's for the people living with you.
My cat's not going to be able to use that to lift me up.
I'm telling you. It's just like, I'm
the
already
Golden
depressed.
Girls aren't buying your shit.
I'm already depressed by the news cycle. Now you're gonna tell me about how my body is just literally going to fucking just be all nah one day. Don't need it.
Eat
So
your vitamins.
God, just Thelma and Louise it by 50. Hand in hand over that cliff.
Let's do it. Go with glory.
Let's do it. I'm down.
All right, Kendall, you have the
Oh,
last
God.
minute of the hips off, no pressure. Are you ready?
No.
3,
right.
2, 1, go.
All right, so I would like to talk about how Donald J. Trump has decided he wants to ban TikTok. And his reasoning is China, 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 China. Well, I just want everybody to know that that's not the actual fucking reason. The actual reason he wants to ban TikTok is because all those preteens and all those Gen Zers are owning his ass on the app. And they're spreading all of the facts on him that he doesn't want people to know. So when you hear your little conservatives being like, oh my God, they're banning our Twitter accounts for our racist hate speech, but then they're okay with banning an entire platform because facts are actually being spread, shut their fucking faces down. He can say China all day long, but really it's because he's just a giant man-child who can't handle preteen kids from middle school who are owning his ass after their middle school dances. Bye.
Bye.
Yes.
Felicia, bye.
Oh my God. No lies detected.
All facts, no printer.
Oh, that's right. Because let me tell you, he can't handle it.
No.
He
They've
cannot
owned his
handle
ass.
it.
They
Boss
killed
baby
his
can't handle
rally.
it.
They're fake buying all his merch.
Right.
They're spreading actual freaking facts on the internet that he doesn't want them to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's gonna claim China all day long, which first of all he can't fucking do. Like
Nope.
whatever.
I don't. Yeah. Like, and also like the whole. Okay, TikTok might be listening to us. Yes, that is a problem.
But what
not
app
saying anything
isn't?
different. That's what I was saying. I'm like,
Instagram does it all the time and then serves you the ad that when you were talking about a new mascara, you're like, oh shit.
You know what?
Right.
Fucking Siri. What about Siri's listening to me all day long? And you would think
Alexa.
she'd be a lot smaller. I mean, she'd be a lot smarter. Like, obviously, any intel that we have is not going to make anything better. Like, I don't know what you want from preteens. What are you learning from them? New dance? I don't get it, but whatever. Okay.
Right.
And
no, it's all because he's just fucking China.
Yeah, but he's becoming China by trying to control what social networks we can access.
And, yeah. And you're right about the whole thing where he's not wanting to ban Twitter because all his fucking jerk MAGAs are on there doing their fake news. Even Madonna. Fuck Madonna too.
Fuck Madonna.
Right. Well, I mean, like Twitter got rid of David Dukes, right? They just completely suspended him, and all the conservatives are up in arms. Our First Amendment rights, they're suspending us, blah, 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 blah. You guys want to get rid of an entire platform.
Right.
How is that not the exact same thing? If not worse. You don't want to just suspend some accounts. You're like, nah, you know what? Shut the entire thing down. Nobody gets to be on TikTok.
Facts.
And I'm sorry, TikTok has gotten me through a lot of hours.
Thank you.
Quarantine.
Thank you.
I will be sitting on TikTok and I'll look up and it'll be 3:00 in the morning and I'm like,
that's right.
What
learning how to
clean
strawberries, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the only thing I would like to say is I would appreciate if it wasn't full blast whenever I open the app, because I'm going to wake my husband up one day with that nonsense, because we don't need that. So thank you. That would be my improvement.
Preteens, teens, Gen Zers, keep causing noise and keep spreading facts because it's working. And honestly, if he thinks getting rid of TikTok is going to shut it down, it's just going to fire people up to go and vote his ass out even more.
Oh, yeah. Keep going. Keep going.
Good trouble. Keep making that good trouble.
Yeah.
That's what we got to remember. Good trouble. Exactly. And with that, we are done with today's show. Thank you, Rachel Johnston, for being on the show today. We will have all the links. Angel City Roller Derby. We totally appreciate it. Big show. August is going to be fire. So make sure you're listening to it. We have some great guests lined up. I'm super excited. But make sure that you are subscribing, that you review us, And we're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. You can follow us and DM us on Twitter and Instagram at The Hoops Talking. We do have a TikTok, The Hoops Talk. We'll see if that stays. We're also on YouTube, so make sure you get on YouTube. The Good News Radio app, they're still having their GoFundMe, so check them out. All of our links are in our bio, so we're always good to go. But other than that, I mean, I'm Liz, that's Karen, this is Kendall. We love you. We're The Hoops Talk. Karen, how do we want to keep it?
We want to keep it
sweaty and